Hey, peace. Again, might have to do another class session online exclusively. Of course, with the noise here, I just didn't have all the technology available to, to get rid of it, and to change the outlet. But I haven't heard great complaints, and really, whatever I'm sharing here, if it's really useful, a little bit of noise shouldn't hurt it. Peace, wise you. Again, and like all the sessions, I want to capture some of the questions that any of you might have. Try to get the questions out first. And as we go along, I'll have certain things, right? Okay. Right. I'm seeing how, I don't, the technology here is, I don't know, my laptop was such a quiet workhorse for me, until I started to stream live, I guess it liked the underground. It liked me writing and downloading music and books, and didn't like anything else though. So once I got into doing anything else, it just rebelled against me. But here's some of the things to plan. I'm going to go over some things. I think I'm even going to go over some of the ideas in the 5% media thing that I've been writing and stuff, and I'm trying to construct things that are completely useful. So even my columns that I give out to the 5%media.com site are going to be things that are particularly useful with regard to my class. A lot of people ask me how I was able to teach at School of Mecca all those years, and emphasis to continue, because once we get back open, and, there was a grasp on this virus, I'll be doing the same thing. We'll be doing the same thing. And a lot of it is because I made sure I focused on one thing. Some of us are P.E.A.C.E. Some people focus on many things, and I forget where I was reading this about. I read a lot of books though, so sometimes the literature I read, I don't always keep track of it. And I'm also writing about the books that I've read. So sometimes I lose track occasionally of where I may have read a particular concept. Let me just look at the books I've read recently. Oh no, I won't even talk about this concept because it's from a book I'm editing. So just kind of like was a really good idea. But I'll leave that be. But the point is that one of the goals of this classroom is to find out your talents. So if you don't, if you aren't working on trying new things, experimenting with new ideas, seeing what your talents really are, and even cultivating the talents that aren't really great, but they could be useful. They'll be useful to your well-being. Like they just make you happy. You know what I'm saying? then you're not really utilizing this knowledge of self as it could be. The joy of it is really to utilize and explore new talents and new ideas. And I'll give you an example. I'm trying to think of it. It was in my head like a minute ago before I got online. But it's funny. Anything could take you off track. What took me off track is that the internet went out right when I was clicking online to get online. And the idea that I was going to write, I stopped from writing it so that I could get this internet back up. But even still, we're on the course here. But finding your talent, right, isn't always about finding that talent that's going to make you riches. But it's a combination of cultivating the ideas, the joys that you have that you may not be good at. Like, I don't know, let's say, we're not going to be Donny Hathaway, but we like to sing, we like to actually sing. Like, let's say you'd like to really, really engage in singing along with your favorite music, not like it's an occasional thing when you feel the spirit, but this is a thing you do, and sometimes you study singers and you study the way they sing, the technicalities of it, and how could this be useful if you're no good at it, if you're not gonna, if you're never gonna be a singer? The real use in it is if you cultivate these likes that are not necessarily useful. There's a very great potential, though, to give you the daring to try new things and to actually explore the reasoning why you're no good at something and to find something else, And this is why I made that plus lesson, the justice curriculum, which I'm waiting a while to expand that, I really want to expand it with the best research, and I don't think on some of the 10, I don't think I have enough material that I find suitable, so I haven't, I realized that we really didn't get through the health protocol for last week, so I'm gonna do that. Definitely gonna go through that so that way you can have that online. But the justice curriculum, where I listed all of those things to study: hygiene, music, news, science, health, training, identity, pedagogy, talent, love. I'm going to be giving details of where to start researching on each of these things, so that way, we could be consistent learners within those particular fields and how we would do it, right? Okay, the Supreme, that has to be, I don't have a printout of the update. Okay. I have had some students here email me books that they would like to read. And that, nothing else. Nothing else. No other questions. No one asking me about any other details about anything or anything they would like to learn, but just asking about a particular book or books that they might have so they could read. And that's great. That's great. Okay. I want you guys to figure out how you can utilize Sunez here as a reference, as a tool, right? Not a tool to be bloodsucked, but as a tool to elevate yourself. It's so very rare that we ever have tools, to really build, And we're always at the mercy of everyone else. Okay. I also want to go through some concepts as we go along and we get the more crowded and more interaction into all this, some of the ideas that I've collected over the week. And so the health protocol sheet is really what I want to go through later in the class session as we go along. I think that's the most necessary thing that we could use that I haven't really gone through yet. And of course, obviously, supreme mathematics. You know. Again, if there are any questions about, the peace progress questions, that particular plus lesson is something that was very old that I covered in the last two sessions. That's something I never wrote down, and I wrote down as better, more concise, more, more to the point plus lessons, like the build awareness square, that leads to the idea of triangle of power. So I never really thought about digitizing that stuff, but it's very useful to get into the detail of things. So I have all the brothers here, the people that are here, that I see here, logged in. What are some of the things that you've been building on? I had a particular homework assignment that I gave out, which I'm going to mention a little bit. And it certainly was one where it would be useful for you to complete, because it's not really about answers. I was asking you to collect questions of a particular kind. And that's the best kind of assignment. The best kind of assignment isn't always, I need some answers. Let me get some answers. I have to give answers to the teacher. Best thing is the questions. Okay. Okay, so let's see what we have in the curriculum here, and then we can go into what we're going to build upon. All right, so the first thing is the 5% media page, right? And I've taken the columns that I've been writing for the 5%media.com, the Peace Course columns that I've been writing. I've been using them more as like a retrospective of, my pedagogy, like immediate ideas that I get. Of course, in my own personal journals and such, right? When I'm writing on my own, there are much more details and much more ideas, that are more personal, and what I need to do to better myself. The critique is much more harsh. It's always harsh. I think, just lauding what you've done good isn't good enough, and if we do, we have to, figure out how we could continue. I was watching this thing, I've been watching the Last Dance documentary about Michael Jordan, and I'm really enjoying it. And as a side note, a lot of people talk about the journalistic integrity of the documentary, and this is just my own personal stuff, since we start the class with just a few students and stuff and not a lot of interaction. What I find interesting is what I have found interesting, I'm typing something as I'm doing this, and it's doing what it wants to do. That way I don't lose track of the notes. I really want to have good notes on here, so you would go back and research them. If we're going to do this, let's do it right. Now, a lot of people, whether you're basketball fans or not, though, it brings up issues of journalistic integrity, because the main player, documentary had to be okayed through Jordan. But one thing I found is that many of the things that are contrary to him or not, people think they may have been glossed over. But I've read a lot of materials, being a fan of basketball, being a very big fan of Michael Jordan. And for those that know me, even while I'm a big fan of Isaiah Thomas too, because as a kid he was my hero. Him and Kevin Johnson. Let's really look him up. I tried to imitate Isaiah Thomas, but it was easier to try to, or at least, technically easier to imitate Kevin Johnson, because he didn't have all the moves that Isaiah had. But In the Last Dance documentary, they talk about the integrity of it, and it doesn't really. What I find interesting about journalists is that they're also being surprised by a lot of the information in there, and a lot of the information in there is really common knowledge if you were really researching, including a lot of the good books that have written about it, including what I keep mentioning, Roland Lazenby's book on Jordan, called Michael Jordan, The Life. And I have that. If you're really a Jordan fan and stuff, you'd like to read that. I have a couple of good Jordan books, you know what I mean? I also have another book about the experience, the collective experience of other players that have played against him, and it was merging that book that I was reading along with Biocentrism by Robert Lanza, where I started to really think about the ideas of about how the mind sees things slower and how the mind can compute things at a faster rate and thus make things slower. But I won't give that build now. But then I have to go and build on the whole thing, and I'm not as sharp on it because I wrote it down and it's back in my files. So I have to reacquaint myself with it. I probably would add more now with what I'm learning. But what's interesting about journalistic integrity is that what should be common knowledge is being of surprise to a lot of people. That shouldn't be surprised. That should know all about the information in the documentary. That I find intriguing. Intriguing. Remember, every one of us is really a journalist, though. We start documenting our life, and a journalist is really a historian of the moment. Okay, so the reason I'm saying this, though, is because one of the major things that I have you do, is have your own journal. And I love that it's called a journalist, because you're documenting your day-to-day as technically sound as possible. And I want you to have the ability to judge yourself honestly, right? We talked about, the whole big build. And back and forth a couple of sessions ago about about humility and how it's it's supposed to be a way of fair grading yourself and honestly judging yourself. We need to be doing that, and one of the best ways to do that is in your journal, and for those that get the curriculum, when I email you, the actual technical curriculum of this class had you write a journal and include 3 things, okay? And you should be doing this. You should have your own journal. And if you don't have a journal, let's say or you don't like having all this paper and stuff like that, you can open a Google Doc. Remember, once you have Google Docs, you have unlimited space. So when you have Google Docs, among your Google account, like, you immediately get a certain amount of space. Most of that is going to be your email and things that you save in the drive, right? So let's say if I send you a book, right, these attachments automatically go, even though I sent you the email, they get counted as part of the amount. So be wary of that. But if you have a Google Docs account, you have unlimited space to write. So this enables you to have your own online journal. If this isn't your thing, out of all the things I do, I write everything digitally. My books, my articles, anything I'm writing, ideas. I have a file, right? I have a loose file. It's simply called thoughts. It's simply called thoughts. I made this a few years ago, and I simply just catalog, different thoughts I have, different ideas. Some of them I want to explore in the journal. Some of them are just really just fly sentiments, like they just lines, and I, poetic lines and stuff that came out really good, and I will put that in there. You know what I mean? And when I'm writing a piece, a lot of times the writer's block, you know, a lot of writer's block comes about because people have a blank slate. They look at a blank slate. Don't look at a blank slate. Always be jotting down your ideas and keeping them somewhere, and utilize ideas that you once had to go into there. And that's where the journal and also a file with just loose notes, loose thoughts, because your loose thoughts, like very fragmented ideas, not just like let's say a quick thought about some quick poem you read or something like that. I mean, like a random line, especially like for MCs, a random line that comes into your head. This is what the thoughts doc, you know, my thoughts doc would be for in my Google. And of course, it's unlimited. So again, you can arrange it the way you want. I've had this for a couple of years. Let's see how many. Just give you an idea. About the word count I've thrown in there. It's not even that much. You know what I mean? It's about 50 pages of thoughts, of loose thoughts. And it actually is more, but when I see a thought that could be used but isn't really well developed yet, creatively, intellectually, I save it in there and then I expand it later, you know? So sometimes thoughts don't go into pieces. Sometimes thoughts, they're not ready to be engaged in a piece. You know, a lot of times I'll tell you this. Sometimes someone could say something, and this is also why I see Saladin in her piece. When I told you, Saladin, don't have all your thoughts on Facebook, is because sometimes I have this thought here. I had this thought here. Someone had said something about that it was okay for a young kid who was out, a young man that was part of a podcast and was listing his favorite artists, and he didn't list older artists because he wasn't from that era, so he wasn't equipped to judge him, and yet he's still making top 10, top whatever list of MCs, of artists, whatever it is. And to me, that's bad journalism, because if your list, you can't make a top 10 list historically and then say you're a young person and you wouldn't know about older artists, so you're not going to include them. You know, we let that go for like rap, which is a silly thing, but it would make no sense if we did that musically with, let's say, jazz, or, you know, we listed trumpet players of the last 10 years and these are the GOATs. You know, see how silly that sounds? No Louis, no Dizzy, no Miles. Or how silly that would sound if we were doing that for soul singers and we just said, you know what, I'm just going to mention people like Miguel and The Weeknd. I'm going to leave out Marvin Gaye and you know, Donnie and Curtis and Stevie, right, who had his born date, 70th born date or something. That doesn't make any damn sense, right? And it's really just an excuse for bad journalism. So I had this whole build on it, and I was going to throw it on Facebook. But I realized I have my own show. I have my own outlets to discuss these things. So what I did was everything I wrote, it was actually bedded all in there, and I was about to send, and I was like, you know what? First of all, the person said it was, I don't really have much interaction, and truth be told, they don't seem to have much care for anything I say journalistically or about music, even though they may like the same types of music. So I just took it off. And I just saved it. Whether it's for a book, whether it's for a show, or anything else, it doesn't really matter. You know what I mean? But save your builds, because they could be something else. It's something much more grand. You know? a lot of times when I tweet certain things, it's only because I want it to be when I do something like when I tweet something like an idea, or it's usually because I've been saying this for a long time and I actually want to articulate it and also have it documented by time, have it officially in there by time that I said it at that time, so there's proof, right? So we got a little small cipher here, and that's good. But let me know, the brothers and sisters, whoever's in here, let me know what you'd like me to build on, and then I'll build on it, right? Now, as we go along in a particular day, right? So I mentioned 5% media. Let's look at some of the things I said about that. I'm trying to look at if it was worthy to comment on it. Okay. I'm talking about the plus lessons. I've been using a lot of my plus lessons. Okay. But I also said this. I want you to treat this classroom as one phase. Now, if you're online learning from me, and if you're not interacting with me while I'm online, then you're actually a lesser student. You're way in the back, and you're not getting all of the things you can use. If you're interacting with me via the email, then you're doing yourself a service, right? Then you're taking this head on, and you're doing as much as you can to get this knowledge, okay? And to get the insights that I may be able to share on a deeper level. If you're just listening online, and you want to be part of this nation, and you're just listening to me, maybe you couple it with Darkim and others that are online, I'll tell you now that it is not enough. There has to be more, because there has to be something that you create. Now, you could create by building with others, or you could create by what you do in the classrooms, right? In the engagement. Now, I only know the engagement that I'm asking you to have. I don't know the exact engagement that Darkim is expecting of people or anything like that. But I have seen in his classroom let's see here. You see, we might have had some technical difficulties. Now, I see myself still streaming here, but the problem is I don't see anyone else when I go to the link. So I don't know if my internet is not really on point today. So I really apologize for that. It seems like the stream is lost and that no one was able to tell me. So I'm going to end this stream now. Let's see if we can start this up again.